Donald Trump, whose Project 2025 would gut FEMA, tries to score points on Helene. Chris Graham here for Augusta Free Press. So Donald Trump's Project 2025, he keeps trying to distance himself from it, but it was written by his former staff members, his former top advisors. The forward to it was written by J.D. Vance. That guy's running for vice president on his ticket. So distance yourself all you want, but you're not going to be distanced. Anyway, Project 2025 would raise the FEMA threshold for disaster declarations, eliminate direct lending from the SBA to aid businesses impacted by disasters, and it would effectively privatize the National Weather Service. Oh, and the National Hurricane Center, which is supposed to help us get ready for pending disasters, would be neutered by having a monitor watching over his shoulder to make sure it's not going to go too far, by perhaps politicizing our newer, stronger, more devastating hurricanes as maybe being the results of man made climate change. Other than that, it's adorable that Trump, in addition to staging a photo op in Valdosta, Georgia, earlier this week, um, Valdosta being one of the communities in the southeast devastated by the remnants of Hurricane Helene, is trying to use a storm as a political weapon against Vice President Kamala Harris. The funny part of this is give him his background here. But let's first read the quote. This is a message he posted on his social media site. Biden and Harris abandoned Americans in Afghanistan. They sacrificed Americans to an open border, and now they have left Americans to drown in North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama. I'm not sure Alabama how this fits in, and elsewhere in the South. Under this administration, Americans have always come last because we have leaders who have no idea how to lead. Now, let's go to the history here. It was actually Trump who threw rolls of toilet paper and paper towels at Puerto Ricans after the island was decimated by Hurricane Maria in 2017. I laughed there, but it only because it's so ridiculous that a president thought that was a appropriate thing to do. That was as his administration was stiffing Puerto Rico's request for aid until the eve of the 2020 presidential election. He only decided to lift the hold on the money because he was afraid he would lose Puerto Rican votes in Florida, thinking Florida was going to be a close election that year in the Electoral College. Um, Transactional he is. The Trump administration also, using the word transactional, punished North Carolina for effectively for electing Democrat Roy Cooper governor. In the aftermath of Hurricane Matthew in 2017, the Trump administration granted just $6.1 million of the $929 million in disaster aid requested by the state for cleanup. It's about, it's not much, 1%. And he threatened to block federal aid to California, another state with a Democratic governor, when that state was in the throes of a wildfire disaster in 2020. Okay, so it's this guy who dares to talk about a president abandoning anybody. He also dared to tell a pair of outright lies on Monday with respect to Helene, the first on another social media post claiming that he was getting reports about the federal government and Governor Cooper, quote, going out of their way not to help people in Republican areas. I guess that's projecting because he did that. I mean, we just went over that, right? The second that Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp was having, quote, a hard time getting the president on the phone to discuss the state's needs. Now, he said that on Monday. Governor Kemp, for his part of this, said that on Sunday, actually, it wasn't Kemp trying to call Biden. Biden called Kemp. Kemp actually missed Biden's first call, had to call him back, uh, and um, and said that let's see, he just said, "Hey, what do you need?" This is what Kemp said. Biden said, "Hey, what do you need?" And I told him, we got what we need. We'll work through the federal process. He offered that if there's any other things we need, just to call him directly, which I appreciate that, Kemp said. So Trump was just talking off the top of his head there, and he was wrong, apparently, obviously. So, you know, that's what Trump does. The last bit of the story here, on Trump's disgusting day, trying to score political points, his bodies are literally being found in trees after the floodwaters were receding, has to do with his utter lack of basic knowledge about the weather in the United States of America, where he was president for 4 years. He actually said in the photo op in Valdosta that Helene was, quote, so extensive, nobody thought this would be happening, especially now. It's so late in the season for hurricanes. September is the heart of the peak of the hurricane season in the United States. It's now October. The hurricane season ends in the latter part of November. It's so late in the season, nobody thought this would happen. You cannot make up how utterly dense this guy is, folks. If you have anything for me, please feel free to email me at Chris at AugustaFreePress.com.